Welcome back. Let's talk about Proverbs. Proverbs in the Hebrew Bible is called Mishle Shlomo, meaning the Proverbs of Solomon. Now, if you look at chapter 10 and verse 1, and if you look at chapter 25 and verse 1, these two verses say Mishle Shlomo, meaning the Proverbs of Solomon, thereby making us assume that the entire book of Proverbs, the 31 chapters, were written by Solomon. No, that's not the truth. Now, wait a minute. There are Bible critics who say that this entire book of Proverbs was written by somebody else, not Solomon. No. Most of it was written by Solomon himself. They are all Solomon's Proverbs, except one or two were written by somebody else, especially the one in chapter 31 about this woman. That was not written by Solomon. But then, you would also come across expressions of wisdom talking in the first person. I seek me. Whoever seeks me early in the morning will find me. That's wisdom talking. But we know that the man who was blessed with tremendous wisdom was Solomon. So Solomon was writing the Proverbs, and at times he was using the first expression to talk about wisdom, as if wisdom was talking. Okay. Now this first person expression, third person expression, these are there in the Bible in many places. Remember when we were talking about Moses, when Moses was writing about his own death, he would write it in the third person. He died, Moses died, and he was buried. Even in many occasions where the writer would, even in the New Testament, the writer would talk about himself in the third person. Okay. So that is common. Now here in Proverbs, sometimes Solomon was writing in the first person as if he was wisdom. So you would want to understand that. Again, this is poetry. So poetry contains these poetical expressions. And then there are certain apparent contradictions also. If you go to chapter 26 and then verse 3, if you read, it will say, answer a fool according to his folly. If not, then the next verse would say, answer not a fool according to his folly. So you are faced with a quandary. Hey, should I answer a fool or should I not? But then it's sort of contextual. You play by ear. If you deem necessary to respond, then respond. If you don't deem necessary to respond, then don't. So that's the whole idea of Proverbs. Now, many Christians have a habit of reading Proverbs as per the date. Now today is the 5th, so they would read Proverbs chapter 5. Since it has 31 Proverbs, they can even use it in a month that has 31 days. But then it's up to you. There is nothing wrong in reading like that. But then there is no stipulation that you should read like that either. Anyway, so this Mishle Shlomo, the Proverbs of Solomon, read them and be blessed. And it has a lot of advice. Now, what are the Proverbs? I would say advice. These nitty-bitty advices. And most of these verses are not interconnected. Now, let me draw a very important distinction between the Psalms and the Proverbs. Okay. Now, when you read Psalms, those verses are usually interconnected. Sometimes a previous verse would be repeated in a following verse in a different way, but it will be saying the same thing. Whereas in Proverbs, each of these verses could mean something in their own, and the next verse would be talking about something else. So unlike many other passages where you have to worry too much about the context, to read verses that are preceding the verses and proceeding the verses. In Proverbs, you may not necessarily want to do that. So, yes, there are some verses within Proverbs where you would want to do that, but not all the time. So, if God sort of speaks to you with one verse, fine, God can. And many people don't like Proverbs because most of the people see it as vituperative, telling you off. It'll call us by our first name, hey, fool! So people don't like it. Whereas Psalms is very cuddly, comforting, and nice, sweet. Proverbs is like very vituperative. Hey, you, don't sleep too much. Look at the ants, get up. All that kind of stuff. Don't go behind that woman. But we need Proverbs also, because that is one way in which God gives us advices. What we should do and what we should not do. It talks about the fool a lot over against the wise. It talks about the obedience, day-to-day life. It's very helpful. Proverbs, I love the Proverbs, okay, and enjoy Proverbs. Shall we go to the next book now? Ecclesiastes, okay, Kohelet. What is Kohelet? Kohelet is actually the guy who assembles people. Hey, come, gather, I got something to say. So that's why many people try to say it's the preacher. The word, our English word Ecclesiastes comes from the word ecclesia, called out, which is translated as church in our New Testament. But the real Hebrew rendering is, it's not that. The Hebrew rendering is kohelet, which means the one who gathers people. Hey, I got something to tell you. Come gather around me. What is the idea of the book of Ecclesiastes? Solomon was now towards the end of his spiritual journey, not the physical journey. Now you must really understand that Solomon started really well. He was David's son, born to Bathsheba, and David. And then Solomon ascended the throne, and he was very godly when he did that. Because I don't know about you, if God appeared to me and asked me, hey Suresh, what do you want? I have a list. I have a list to tell God, if God asks me, Suresh, what do you want? I'll say, do you have the time to listen? I have a lot. But Solomon was unhesitant, spot on, specific, spiritual. He said, Lord, give me wisdom. Because the responsibility that has befallen me is humongous. I'm going to rule these people. I don't know how. Now, that's humility. He has been the son of David. He saw how David ruled. He knew how to rule these people. But he says, how am I going to rule, Lord? Please give me the wisdom. He impressed God on day one. He was so spiritual. And his spiritual journey was very wonderful. Of course, he was very young. His dad had acquired all the material for the construction of the temple. Then he, instead of using all those for the temple, he used them to build palaces. He needed more palaces because he had many wives. At first, him taking many wives was not a problem for him because his father was polygamous. His dad, who ruled Hebron for 7 years, Hebron in English, for 7 years, took 6 wives there. He was busy acquiring wives. So he had no problem being polygamous. But then he anyway started building the temple for God, and he did a wonderful job. Boy, that was a magnificent temple. And then, of course, he was so spiritual to write some Psalms and of course, the Proverbs. For him to have written Bible books, he must have been very spiritual. But if you read the book of Kohelet, if you read the book of Ecclesiastes, you would see that he is talking about the last days. He's saying vanity, vanity, everything is vanity. Acquiring money, acquiring women, acquiring that, this and the other. It's all vanity. If you go to chapter 12, I like Ecclesiastes 12 because it describes the old age poetically. Hey, we are dealing with poetry here, right? How the gray hair comes and your teeth fall off and you get wrinkles and you become so feeble and you can't stand up straight, you recline and you get bed sores. All the old age symptoms are mentioned there, and this guy says, the gatherer, the Kohelet says, before all these things happen, come to God. So we automatically assume that this fellow is already old, he is going to die. That's not the case. He lived long after that too, but in a backslidden state. So I see the book of Ecclesiastes as the last book, holy book of Solomon before he backslid. Just getting out of our study, let me just run out and come in. Solomon wrote some bad books also. Have you heard of the Black Book of Solomon? Used by the black magicians and spiritists and so on. And Solomon was bad. He was into demonology a lot. And he started worshipping heathen gods. In vain he was blessed with such a lot of wisdom. His wisdom did not save him. Okay. Anyway, let's come back into our study. So the book of Ecclesiastes is a warning to people that they should seek God before their brightnesses dim out. And advice Solomon himself failed to heed. Ironically. Sad, isn't it? But anyway, praise God, we have the book and may we read it. Just because it's talking about vanity, don't think it's a book of vanity. It's a wonderful book of warning. We need that book, Ecclesiastes. It's lovely. And then we come to the Song of Solomon. Song of Solomon, a largely misunderstood and a misconstrued book. Song of Solomon is actually called Song of Songs. Okay, it is actually the song of all songs, the best song ever. That's the title. Written by Solomon. It has 8 chapters. You know what I'm going to do in the near future? I'm going to do a verse by verse teaching on the Song of Solomon in Tamil separate and in Sinhala separate. Maybe I'll try to do it in English also, if it is going to be a blessing to you all. And I'll tell you something. The book of Song of Solomon is such a spiritual book. It contains everything from Genesis to Revelation. Not many people know that. Many people misconstrue the Song of Solomon to a sexual book. And today we are living in a world where sex is sort of semi-negative. On the contrary, sex was created the best. Hey, you know what? I'm just remembering something from the top of my head. God created man, and then God created a woman. And what did God speak to them first? Now, when you speak to somebody, first you'll say hi or hello. I mean, God should have created Adam, and when he wakes up, God should have said, hey, I'm God, I created you, how are you? And but the very first thing God spoke to man was increase and multiply. And then conquer and be blessed. You know what I mean? So the very first thing, according to the Bible, according to Genesis, that God spoke to man and woman was increase and multiply. How do you increase and multiply? Without sex. So God was saying, hey, have sex. Get out there and have intercourse. So that was how beautiful sex was. And that's why the devil hates sex. It's not that he doesn't like sex. He hates sex. So what has he done? He had removed the beauty of sex, and he has replaced it with horrible, evil things. Sex has become, it has taken a lot of phases, PHASES phases. What is homosexuality? I mean, you are never born a homosexual. Okay, God doesn't create homosexuals. That's a sin, that's from the devil. You need healing, you need deliverance from that. Okay, I am willing to challenge anybody who wants to talk to me about homosexuality. I have done enough studies on that, and I can argue with anybody to show that homosexuality needs deliverance. And I have here in our college many who come as homosexuals and get healed and delivered from that demonic oppression. That's not a way of life. LGBT, it's not a way of life. It's from the hell. It's from the devil. So the devil has injected a venom called homosexuality. You know, a man is attracted to a man. A woman is attracted to a woman. That's not how God created. Then bestiality sex. You know, man is attracted to animals. Come on. I mean, that's horrible, isn't it? You know, people having intercourse with animals, and in some countries, it is becoming a law that you can marry an animal. When they showed me the first video clip of a woman marrying a dog in Netherlands, I thought this is a joke. Maybe they're doing something for Candid Camera or America's Funniest Home Videos or something. But then when they told me it's real, I was so shocked to smithereens. When my wife and I first went to Augusta, Georgia, when we were in Augusta, Georgia in 1993, we saw the first wedding of two men, a man marrying a man, and I was like, is this a joke? Is this real? And then when I was told it's real, a man is getting married to a man, I was like, where is this world going to? But today, this is legal in many countries, and it's a way of life, no problem. Lesbianism, gay, the wonderful, beautiful English word called gay, which talked about the aesthetic beauty, is now a word to denote homosexuality. Crazy. And now, bestiality sex. People marrying animals. What about pedophilia? People having sex with children and even infants. How many people are getting caught? Now, people are getting caught. What about people who don't get caught? How can you gratify yourself sexually with an infant, with a child? I mean, this is directly from hell. Then you get fetish sex. People having sex with objects, dolls, and all that. These sex shops. How do you know? So I've been to the sex shops. I have seen what those fellows are selling. Artificiality. It's horrible. This is all from the devil. Okay? And I can name them: group sex, wife partner swapping, and bisexual, homo and heterosexual, bisexual. Oh, why is the devil waging war against sex? Because sex is good. It was created by God. It was a blessing to man and woman. The first thing God told them was increase and multiply. I came from a Hindu religion, 330 million gods. Not one of those gods called their believers my spouse, my wife, my bride. What does Jesus do? Jesus came and died for you and I. By his death, his shedding of his blood, he purchased us to be what? To be his bride. So, bridegroom and bride, there is the element of sex, at least in the tone of it. It has sex. Even if there is no real physical intercourse, the idea of sex is there. He is the male, he is the bridegroom, and we are the bride, we are the spiritual female. So, if sex is bad, would he use that analogy? Revelation 19, the wedding supper of the Lamb of Jesus with his church. Okay, parable of the 10 virgins. You see, sex is not at all bad. It's wonderful. And therefore, Song of Solomon is based on this wonderful, beautiful blessing called sex. Okay? And the bridegroom there is Solomon. And the girl, the female, is called in our English Bible the shulamite. Shulamite. Hey, you know what shulamite is? It's nothing other than the feminine of Shalmo, Solomon. So it's the female of Solomon. It's like now Suresh, Sureshi. There is nothing called Sureshi, although Koreans call me Sureshi, Suleshi. Right? But if there is a female name to my name, Suresh, it should be Sureshi. Like that, the Shulamite in the Song of Solomon is actually the female version of Solomon. So, Solomon is allowed by God in a typological sense in that book to play the role of Jesus. Woo! Sad that he backslid, right? Anyway, and the Shulamite is the church. But take this from me, my dear friends. The whole book, consisting of 8 chapters, does not talk just about Jesus and the church. It talks about pre-creation, creation, and the entire story from creation up to Jesus. Then the death of Jesus and the life of Christ. Okay? And the church. And even what's going to happen in the future. The rapture. Hey, rapture is there in the Song of Solomon. Okay? Second coming of Jesus and the eternal, the new heaven and the new earth. You know, when I am talking, I think I would want to do this in English also. So yes, I am deciding right now that soon when I start doing my Sinhala and Tamil teaching on this Song of Solomon, I am going to do English also. We all can be blessed. Okay? So my dear friends, read the Song of Solomon not thinking as the negative. It's talking about the breast of the woman and having sex. Hey, don't look at it as a R-rated movie. You know, it's not a R-rated adult movie. It's so beautiful. It's so spiritual. It's so prophetic. It has history. It has predictions. It talks about what happened then, what's happening now, and what's going to happen in the future. I would say that's a very powerful book, anointed book. And that's why the devil, if you ask me, which of the 66 books does the devil hate the most? I would say number 1, Revelation. Number 2, Song of Solomon. Okay. Now for me, for some eschatologists, the counterpart of Revelation in the Old Testament is Daniel. For me, no. For me, the counterpart of the New Testament Revelation in the Old Testament is the Song of Solomon. That's how important it is. So my dear friends, read Proverbs, Ecclesiastes and Song of Solomon and enjoy. See you next time when we start talking about the 5 major prophetic books.